Greetings, greetings, peace and blessings. Peace and blessings to the chat, to all those that may be catching the replay. I appreciate y'all coming through. Um, and we gonna dive right on in. Not one for long intros. However, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Tap the like button on your way in if you haven't done so already. If you're catching a replay, or if you're live and you haven't set all of your notifications to all to be notified when I go live or when I do uploads, consider doing that as well, right? So, peace and blessings again to everybody in the chat and everybody that is in the bushes, right? We're going to go right off into the topic. So the topic is if you haven't been living under a rock, okay, then it bewilders an intro, a brief intro to state that, of course, Donald Trump has won the election. He is due to be sworn in on January 20th, 2025, and the illegal immigrants and some immigrants that are related or connected to illegal immigrants are in an uproar and they're protesting, and it's being made public through the media, particularly through New York. I do want to add this one little video just to kind of give you some context. It's not a very good quality, but it gets the message across. So give me 1 second here. And we're just going to go ahead. I like to give visuals to see, to show exactly what I see, and then you can have your own perspective and draw your own conclusions. Let's go.
Racist, sexist, anti-gay. Donald Trump, go away. Racist, sexist, anti-gay. Donald Trump, go away. Racist, sexist, anti-gay. Donald Trump, go away. Racist, anti-gay. Donald Trump has got to go.
Interesting.
Our seasoned generation holds unparalleled power.
Immigrants are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Immigrants are.
So that gives, to me, you can hear them chanting, no hate, no fear. There are some advocates for the illegal migrants that are definitely speaking out at rallies, at protest rallies, and they're, vocalizing how they are not going to hide, they're not going to move and operate in fear, right? They're going to object. They are going to fight for their rights, and if they have to take them all the incoming administration all the way to the Supreme Court, then that's what they will do. Now, one of the issues that I have with this whole scenario is that, okay, so we have different groups of, for lack of a better term, if you will, of illegal migrants, right? You have people, there are a lot of illegals that have been here. They're tax paying citizens. They've been allowed to be in this country for decades upon decades. They've had generations of children to that now, once they're born on this soil, they are considered US citizens. So they definitely have the ability to stay in a mass deportation. However, those that never went through the process to become legal citizens in the US are risking deportation. The deportation process that Donald Trump and his the people that he's elected to assist him in matters such as this will be priority number one. They're going to focus primarily on the criminals, the most recent ones, ones that have been reverberating through through the judicial systems, the ones that have been deported before, but they find a way to come back into this country. There's just a lot of different components to this moving machine, and therefore it is raising eyebrows, and it definitely has instilled some concerns with those that come into this country and they just live here, or they just establish a life here without, again, going through the process and due diligence of becoming a citizen. Now, there is some concern when it comes to Canada. Okay. Now, I find it ironic and I find it interesting how the Prime Minister of Canada absolutely advocated, supported, rallied, and anchored behind the illegal migration movement, especially when it came to the United States. Had a lot to say, right? Now that Trump is elected, there's a huge shift in perspective and the level of becoming or being welcoming now to being unwelcoming, to the point where the Prime Minister has absolutely released military persons to protect their border because they expect an influx of illegal migrants once the deportation process begins in this country, that a substantial amount of overflow of illegals will attempt to go into Canada, right? So let's look at a brief video kind of giving a little bit more explanation as to what they're doing to offset that and how their perspectives and their ideas have changed concerning illegals now that it is threatening to hit their home soil, right?
Just days after the election, a federal district court struck down the Biden-Harris administration's parole-in-place program called Keeping Families Together. It was designed to grant amnesty.
Sorry, y'all, that's not the right one. My bad. Let's try this again.
To Canada, the country has put its border with the United States on the highest levels of alert in anticipation of an influx of migrants. Canada says it expects thousands of asylum seekers coming into the country after Donald Trump won the race for the White House. Now, Donald Trump has repeatedly claimed that he will carry out the biggest deportation of migrants on day one after taking office. In response, Canada has deployed hundreds of Border Patrol agents anticipating a wave of asylum seekers. However, Canada's Immigration Minister Mark Miller said that not everyone will be welcome in Canada, and Ottawa will take aggressive actions in the national interest. The warning comes 7 years after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised that Canada would welcome any and all asylum seekers. The Trudeau administration, however, is now backtracking as immigration becomes a hot-button issue ahead of the 2025 election. Donald Trump has repeatedly said that he disapproves of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and the two leaders have shared frosty relations in the past.
And a lot of that tension in their relationships has been tied to the illegal immigrant topic, right? So again, it is interesting that Justin Trudeau, being the Prime Minister of Canada, is now shifting his position and his ideas on immigration now that it is threatening to hit his homeland. And so, we got all of these different avenues to look at illegal immigration and how many people it affects. And one of the biggest concerns and pushbacks that Trump's administration and, you know, the Republicans are getting on this whole topic is, how much is this mass deportation going to cost, right? When we as citizens of this country have been yelling from rooftops and losing our voices with how much it has cost us already, and none of the borders have been closed. To me, it's been smoke and mirrors when it comes to people coming into this country and the numbers being skewed, right? Because if they're unmonitored or they're not being counted or they're not going through due diligence, and we have to the tune, in some sources say that we're close to 30 million since 2020 new illegal migrants in this country, undocumented. What, a month ago it was 20 million? That was the last, when I was doing research, that the number, you know, that kept reappearing. And now the numbers have definitely increased. There's still no way of knowing. There's still no way of knowing, because undocumented means undocumented. Illegal means they're not being counted. They're not going through the system. They're not going through the courts. They're, you know, and then we have this new app, right? We got this new app where people are setting appointments before they can even put foot on the soil of the United States to get sponsors, to, you know, try to accumulate proper documentation so that they don't, you know, get in trouble while they're here. They can seek asylum, all of this other thing. Well, now we've got asylum, the asylum protection being withdrawn this week, right? In the sanctuary cities. So now that, to me, that's a big deal, because without the asylum, then they lose a lot of their protection, even if they are not documented. Now, when it comes to the cost, I've heard numbers of over 300 billion. Now, this is with a B, $billion that it's going to cost to do the size of a mass deportation that Trump is intending on or plans on doing. Excuse me, y'all. And then you have some that say 213 billion. It just depends on what source you listen to, but we can say for sure and for certainty that billions with a B in the hundreds are going to be required and needed in order to get this country back into some type of balance or normality, where the citizens, the veterans, the elderly, do not have to, the homeless don't have to continue to suffer at the behest of all of our funds, all of our taxpayers' monies, all of our resources have been going and to the illegals, and they've been taking priority over the citizens that actually pay into the system. Not saying that some illegals don't pay into the system, but again, if they're illegal, how are we to know? How are we to know, right? Until they end up getting into the system, and then it is discovered that, guess what? They're not in the system. They're not pre-existed into the system, and yet they've been paying taxes or they've been working, whatever the case is. If they have been eluding being detected into this country, very resourceful people that use different apps and different communication avenues with people that are already here. They already, by the time they get here, they know the loopholes, they know the laws better than a lot of the citizens of this country. There is a lot going on in regards to the information that they are equipped with, and a plan that is typically put in place for most of them when they get into this country on how to maneuver to stay up under the radar so they don't risk being deported, right? So there is, and speaking of money, I want to do a couple numbers here. Let me just share my screen real quick. Hold on, y'all. Thank you for being patient. Salute to the chat. Salute to the chat. Okay, why isn't it sharing? Hold on, y'all. Okay, it might be in my settings. Ooh, child. Okay, layouts. Let's try this. Not sure what's going on. I might have to read it because it's definitely worth. I wanted to share it with y'all. Hold on, let me try one more time. Nope. Okay. Y'all know me. I be liking to figure stuff out. Okay. Okay, so what it says is this is a source from Newsweek. Let me just go ahead and say it. An ongoing border crisis that saw 5,000 illegal aliens being released into the United States per day in December of 2023 is a microcosm of a much larger issue as President Biden aims to recapture the White House in a crucial election year. This article was printed in February of 2024. The issue is a $150.7 billion one shared between federal and state governments. And again, that is just 1 year. Since the inauguration of Biden, January 20th, 2021, over 3.3 million illegal immigrants have been released into the U.S., according to the Committee on the Judiciary and Subcommittee on Immigration, Integrity, Security, Enforcement, which is costing taxpayers billions at the federal and state levels. Now, if we're talking per year, right? Let's just do some simple math here. So we got 150.7 billion, and we'll just multiply that. So we are at $602.8 billion in a 4-year tenure as presidency with open borders. And you are whining and complaining about a $200 or $300 billion tab in order to deport those that have no rights to be here. And this is just what's being documented. We're not even, you can't possibly tell me with that kind of influx of people coming in on a day-to-day basis for 3 to 4 years, 3.5 to 4 years, that there's an accurate tabulation of how much has been actually spent in resources, in housing, in food, in medical care, just to name a few. We know that particularly in certain sanctuary cities, they were given phones, they were given transportation, vouchers for transportation, cash vouchers, okay? Things, again, I want to reiterate that the citizens of this country do not get, however, pay into the system and have no say as to where these funds are going, how they're being distributed, who they're being distributed to. We have FEMA that just went through Hurricane Helene and Milton, and Helene was the first hurricane recorded in 2024, and FEMA gets an allocated of over $50 billion. $1 million a year in funding, and they had nothing to give outside of $750 loans to those that were devastated by Hurricane Helene. They stated when FEMA was pushed up upon, the head of FEMA at the time, which eventually left his position, or was, I don't know if he was tossed out or if he left. It really don't matter. He ain't there no more. He stated that it went to the funding of illegal immigrants, and then the federal government disputed that and said that it was not true. And there absolutely is truth to it. There is a recorded timeline of how much and where it went. And it went to the sources and the resourcing of illegal migrants of this country. Where else they gonna get it from? And if they're not getting it from there, it's got to come from somewhere, right? But again, we got veterans that are not getting what they need. We have a level of homelessness that we have not seen before in this country. And where are the programs in order to get these people off the street? And a lot of them are veterans. So you can't say that they're all drug addicts. You can't just say that they're useless individuals that didn't get it out the mud, or that they didn't do their own due diligence, or that they didn't have a reputable or a tax-paying past to where they were employed, they were stable, they were paying into the system. Again, we don't even get a say or even the information as to where these monies are going until they're uncovered, until they're exposed, until they're pushed up on, and then you have, whether it's inadvertently or advertent, whistleblowers as to where is this money. It had to go somewhere. There's always a paper trail. Somewhere there's always a paper trail, right? So now, in addition to what Biden was doing with all of the other shenanigans, his administration was pulling the Democrats, the left, the liberal side, always got a story. They always got a defense. They always have something to say to defend the migration movement in this country. Under the guise, this particular one was submitted to the Supreme Court, and it was recently shot down. And I find the name of the movement is Keeping Families Together. Without further ado, let me just share what I saw.
To certain illegal aliens living in the U.S. by granting them parole and enabling them to apply for a green card. The mass use of parole, a brazen violation of the statute, was never about keeping families together. Instead, it was a blatant effort to sidestep Congress and implement a legalization program to advance the administration's open borders agenda. Parole is supposed to be used on a limited, case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons, but the Biden-Harris administration attempted to twist it into a massive amnesty program benefiting hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens, and that was only the beginning. This mass amnesty made illegal aliens eligible for a whole host of benefits: work authorization, social security numbers, Obamacare, green cards.
Work authorization, social security numbers, green cards,
and eventually citizenship.
And eventually citizenship. Now, if you know anything about this program, they appeal to those that have been arrested, that are on parole, those that have accumulated a record on this soil. And the proposal was to be offered citizenship, social security numbers, work authorizations, green cards.
Hopefully, a judge recognized the lawlessness of the Biden-Harris administration and blocked the program from continuing. Just days after the election, a federal district.
So under the guise, again, just to break this down and to reiterate, they call the program Keeping Families Together. And that's actually, and I'm going to go off on a limb and say that it's propaganda, the same storyline and narrative that they're pushing right now in these rallies of protests, particularly in New York City. They are in an uproar because you have a lot of connected or citizens, those that have gone through the due process, those that came here legally, or those that were born here, but then they ended up recruiting other family members and loved ones to come here, and they haven't been as fortunate, are now at risk of being deported back to their native countries. And there's an issue. One of the problems is that a lot of these people that are facing deportation didn't come here just under the Biden administration. There are some that have been here for 20, 30, 40 years and still are not legal. They are not here legally. We're talking about grandparents. We're talking about parents. We're talking about children. And one of those generations started by being born on this soil, but the origin of the ones that came in never sought or never was able to obtain legal citizenship, which is why there's such an outcry in these rallies, and that there is such a big response of protest from people due to the fact that they are saying they're going to be separated from their families. Now we're also going to, it's a 60-minute interview with Tom Homan. If we don't know who Tom Homan is, he is the one that was just recently appointed as border czar from President Trump. Right? And his view and his stance on immigration, illegal immigration, is stern. He is not playing no games. And I really believe that is why he was elected, because he is not playing any games and he can be depended upon in order to take his emotions, if he has any connected to this topic, out of the equation and get this thing under control that has been so out of control for so long. But before we do that, I want to share some stats that blew my mind. And I know once you see it, you're not going to really, I don't know if it's going to register, but let me just say this right off the bat. Let me just say, the stats that I'm going to show, there is a U.S. immigration attorney, right? The U.S. immigration attorney, he breaks down the top 10 countries whose illegal aliens entered the U.S. under the Biden administration as a percentage of their home country's population. Okay? No, I don't mean a population of a certain group. I'm talking about these numbers come from their entire country's population. And I'm going to let him tell it.
Illegal or inadmissible aliens enter the United States under the Biden-Harris administration as a percentage of their home country's population. Number 10, Colombia. 0.8% of the entire Colombian population entered the United States as illegal or inadmissible aliens under Biden-Harris. Number 9, Mexico. 1.1%. Number 8, Ecuador. 1.6%. Number 7, Venezuela. 2.7% of the entire Venezuela.
Again, this is of their entire country's population. He is also going from the least, from number 10 all the way to number 1, where the numbers increase. Y'all, my bad. I didn't even have my mic on. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me okay. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me okay. Peace and blessings to the chat. Peace and blessings to the chat. I appreciate y'all.
In population, including a large number of criminals and freed prisoners. Number 6, El Salvador, 2.9%. Number 5, Guatemala, 3.2%. Number 4, Haiti, 4%. Number 3, Honduras, 5.9%. Number 2, Cuba, 6.1%. And number 1, Nicaragua, 6.5% of the entire Nicaraguan population entered the United States.
6.5% of the entire population of Nicaragua. I want to repeat that. 6.5% just of that one country of Nicaragua, which seems to be number 1 out of all 10 countries that are over here illegally. Okay, he was very specific. And they're on this soil being catered to, taken care of, pandered to, provided for, protected as of the last 4 years, right?
As illegal or otherwise inadmissible aliens during the Biden-Harris administration. Most of these migrants crossed the border illegally, claimed asylum, and were released into the United States with a court date many years later. The rest,
many years later. they're getting court dates. So what are they doing within that time frame of the years before their court date? They don't have work authorizations. They don't have, or I won't say all of them, I'm just saying in generally speaking, they got to be getting it from somewhere. Somebody's taking care of them. These people are having children on this soil, and their medical bills are being provided for and taken care of. So all they have to do is have a generation of children onto this land, and it makes their children automatic citizens.
Were inadmissible aliens flown directly into the interior of the United States were ushered in with the CBP-1 app as part of an unprecedented mass parole program for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, also known as the CHNV program. For the record, I'm not blaming any foreigner from taking advantage of these open border policies, which invited, enticed, and lured illegal aliens into the United States under Biden-Harris. The blame.
He's saying they were invited, they were lured, they were welcomed, and they actually, I'm going to add, they were promised and assured some things when they got over here. Why wouldn't they want to seek out a better life for them and their families? Why? Why wouldn't they? I don't care if they're criminals. I don't care if they're law-abiding citizens. If you are here and you have been enticed and you have been promoted to come here, and there is footage of the administration saying all you have to do is get here. All you have to do is get here and we will take care of the rest. That's our federal government.
Lies with Biden-Harris, and their destructive policies will be quickly reversed by President Trump. The shocking and unsustainable figures mentioned above were derived from official CBP data, by the way, and the graph based on those figures was created by Data Hazard, who goes by Phantasm on X.
So the data came from the CBP Act, was app from the United States that the United States created in order to circumvent them actually becoming physically on this soil before they seek assistance, and setting up a program for them to get into the system. So by the time, that's the optimal goal, by the time they reach this soil or they reach the United States, that everything has been kind of bumped up and already put in motion, right? So he said, I don't want to dismiss or slide past, but he said parole. So again, this goes with the other topic where the Biden amnesty program was just shot down by the Supreme Court. They tied in together, and this was all one big plan in order to get and to facilitate people of all different backgrounds and countries, totaling over 160, to be welcomed into this country with no limitations, and with asylum being administered once they got here, whether they received that in their own native lands or not.
Policies, which invited, enticed, and lured illegal aliens into the United States under Biden-Harris. The blame lies with Biden-Harris, and their destructive policies will be quickly reversed by President Trump. The shocking and unsustainable figures mentioned above were derived from official CBP data, by the way, and the graph based on those figures was created by Data Hazard, who goes by Phantasm on X. I'm Joseph Levino, U.S. immigration and business attorney based in Miami and serving clients worldwide. Share.
So that one has definitely been an eye-opener for me. When it comes to giving, because I communicate in numbers, right? So that's my strength. Bad at names. When it comes to numbers, I don't play no games, right? So it puts things into context for me when they say this is of the entire population, and now they're here. And again, we are aware that most countries have protections in place that once they do make it across the border, that they cannot go back, which is why the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has put protections of his country, Canada, in place so that they can't, the overflow, the criminals, the illegals, the undocumented can't saturate and destroy his country. yet and still he was an advocate when it was all happening in the United States, right? So this disturbed me. And it disturbed me because of the attitude behind and the entitlement behind what this father of a child that his significant other had on the United States soil, which automatically made that child a citizen. And we're going to talk about it once we watch it. Let's go.
De aquí. No nos vamos de aquí de Nueva York, nos quedamos aquí en Nueva York, yo y mi gordito. Entonces, por favor, respóndame el otro video que le mandé. Si usted no va a sacar, dándonos $20,000 porque este hijo mío es de Nueva York, es estadounidense. Donald Trump, espero por tu respuesta.
Okay, so let's go through this real quick. Okay, let's break this down a little taste. House Sway. We are not leaving America. My son and I are not leaving New York. My son was born here in the USA and he's American. I sent a previous video telling you that if you pay us $20,000, we might leave. I'm waiting for your answer, Donald Trump. Let's see it again.
No nos vamos de aquí. No nos vamos de aquí de Nueva York, nos quedamos aquí en Nueva York, yo y mi gordito.
So his baby is the ticket. At least he thinks so, right? He thinks that because that baby was born in the U.S., that it provides amnesty and asylum for him to have to be deported to wherever he came from. Okay, so this is the attitude and the avenue that they are absolutely trying to use in order to not be separated from their children. However, you come over onto this soil illegally with no rights to this land, and you procreate, and your baby is born on this land. Technically, through the Constitution, your baby has rights to this soil, but you do not. What amazes me on this is when he makes these statements. And to me, when he says, I sent a previous video telling you that if you pay us $20K, we might leave. Like the ball is in his court. Like he has a sense of entitlement, and that bewilders me, y'all. It just bewilders me. Because I am certain if that baby was just born here, that baby don't look more than a few months old, that more than likely a lot of them are using this tactic and this technique in order to secure themselves and try to exclude themselves from being deported or amongst the first to be deported, like it's an insurance policy. Okay? Oh, hold on 1 minute, y'all. I'm tripping. Oh, Speaks, shout out to the chats. Shout out to the chat. He thinks that baby's rights equal his right. Bingo. Bingo. And if he doesn't think that, well, I agree with you. He does think that. But even if he is aware of the law and that he could still be deported, his baby could be sent back with him in order to get him gone. Right? So I don't know. I just thought this was the attitude, the disposition, the arrogance, the sense of entitlement, that because you procreated and that baby just so happened to be born in this country, that automatically gives you leverage over all of the other illegals that have used different tactics and different means to try to secure their position to not be deported and sent back to where they came from.
Entonces, por favor, respóndame el otro video que le mandé. Si usted no va a sacar, dándonos $20,000 porque este hijo mío es de Nueva York, es estadounidense. Donald Trump, espero por tu respuesta.
No nos vamos de aquí.
He's waiting for his answer. Well, good luck with that. Okay. Good luck with that. So that brings us to the next point of, I want us to get to know Tom Homan and his intentions for being the border czar a little bit better, right? And I'm going to put up an overlay because this is a 60-minute and I don't really want to risk, getting any flags on this. But I thought that definitely some of this commentary and the exchange between the interviewer and Tom Homan was listening worthy. Let's go.
What would be the human and financial cost? We took these questions to one of the people Donald Trump has said would join him if he wins a second term, Tom Homan, who led immigration enforcement during the first Trump administration when thousands of migrant children were separated from their parents at the border.
The story will continue in a moment.
I hear a lot of people say, the talk of a mass deportation is racist. It's threatening to the immigrant community. It's not threatening to the immigrant community. It should be threatening to the illegal immigrant community. But on the heels of historic illegal immigration crisis, that has to be done.
How you doing?
At the Republican National Convention this summer, Tom Homan was the proud pitchman of mass deportation.
I got a message to the millions of illegal aliens that Joe Biden's releasing our country. You better start packing now.
Over 3 decades, he worked his way up from border patrolman to acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the agency known as ICE, during the first year and a half of the Trump administration. This election cycle, former President Trump has mentioned mass deportation at nearly every rally.
We will begin the largest deportation operation in the history of our country because we have no choice.
What would the largest deportation in American history look like to you?
Well, let me tell you what's not going to be first. It's not going to be a mass sweep of neighborhoods. It's not going to be building concentration camps. I've read it all. It's ridiculous.
But if mass...
Okay, so I appreciate his clarity and his clarification on that topic because for sure that is going to be a talking point and a pushback point that the other side is going to ride until the wheels fall off. So I do appreciate that. And she is going to bring up the fact or the question, does that mean that families will be separated? Let's continue.
Deportation is not going to be, as you said, massive sweeps and concentration camps.
There'll be concentrated,
what is it?
There'll be targeted arrest. We'll know who we're going to arrest, where we're most likely to find them based on numerous investigative processes.
Here's our message.
Former President Trump's running mate J.D. Vance said it would be reasonable to deport 1 million people a year. Trump's top immigration advisor, Stephen Miller, told a conservative audience that deportees would be removed from the country in a massive military air operation.
So you grab illegal immigrants and then you move them to the staging grounds, and that's where the planes are waiting for federal law enforcement to then move those illegals home. You deputize the National Guard to carry out immigration enforcement.
Stephen Miller said that this will involve large-scale raids.
I don't use the term raids, but you're probably talking about worksite enforcement operations, which this administration pretty much stopped.
Workplace enforcement, that's a roundup.
And that's going to be necessary. Worksite enforcement operations, just not about people who's working illegally in the country and companies that hire them that's going to under.
That is necessary. I mean, her line of questioning, I'm kind of looking at her sideways, but I get it. I understand. Do your thing. However, these are pushback questions basically on their on the intentions of the Trump administration once the sworn in is taking place, because it has already been stated that that is the first thing on the priority list that Trump is going to focus on is the deportation process and reclaiming some of what is left of this country.
Their competition, I had U.S. citizen employees. This is where we find a lot of trafficking cases, women and children who are forced into forced labor to pay off their smuggling fees.
A study by the American Immigration Council found that mass deportation could result in the removal of millions of construction, hospitality, and agriculture workers, reducing the GDP by $1.7 trillion. Can you just limit it to criminals and national security threat, though?
If I'm in charge of this, my priorities are public safety threats and national security threats first.
First implies others follow, though, right?
Absolutely.
So game that out for me. What's the scenario?
It's not okay to enter a country illegally, which is a crime. That's what drives illegal immigration. When there's no consequences, the Biden-Harris administration has proven this. You can.
Period. Listen to this, y'all. So he's saying that coming into this country in itself is a crime, right? Hold on a second. He's saying that it's a crime to come into this country illegally. So when it comes to deporting criminals, he's not going to specifically, because first of all, we don't know who's here. We have an idea of the amount of criminals that have priors, but those that don't, that come here and commit crimes, they're not going to have an adequate tally of what their priors or their previous, if they don't have any, or if they didn't occur in this country, or we don't have access to their information from their native land, all of that. There are so many different, possibilities you can look at it from. But what he's saying is that there have been no consequences. It's not their fault. They are going to sound the alarm and ring the whistle, blow the whistle, and invite more to come in if they can come here and around them they see, like just looking in New York, busting mirrors in storefronts, robbing stores, stealing from stores, and then taking the merchandise and selling it in front of the storefront that they done broke into the day before on tables. Their own merchandise. There's no consequences. These people are able to do what they want. And the ones that do go through the judicial system, their court dates are months and months out. And then there's no consequences, or have not been consequences, for those that do not show up for the court dates. So the only way that they will be, if they're illegal and if they're undocumented, how are you going to track them down? How are you going to know where their place of residence is? How are you going to be able to locate them in order to hold them responsible? There have not been enough consequences, and it's actually done just the opposite. Is it's shown them such immunity under this administration, in my opinion, that we are at the tune of over 20 million, at the very least, illegal immigrants in this country.
To the border, turn yourselves in, get released within 24 hours.
So you are carrying out a targeted enforcement operation. Grandma's in the house. She's undocumented. She get arrested too?
It depends.
Which?
Let the judge decide. We're going to remove people that judges already deported.
Homan's suggestion that Grandma might face arrest would mark a major shift in policy. Under President Biden, ICE is mostly targeting those deemed national security or public safety threats and people who just crossed the border illegally.
Okay, so my question is to this, hold on, y'all, is if their priority, let me get this right, if Biden in his current administration's priority has been to deport the criminals and the harmful and those that pose a national security risk or a threat, how is that any different from allowing them in here in the first place? I'm just asking. Your policies and your lack of concern about who's coming into this country has got them into this position. And what? For surface work, for appearances purposes, you just, you say that this is what we're doing, but yet and still we have gangs, we have criminal organizations, we have an epidemic of fentanyl being smuggled into this country. And one of the most dangerous forms of their smuggling is through candy, which makes our children super vulnerable to being affected by a drug that if you touch it and enough gets ingested into your skin, it can take you out of here. But you say, for the sake of looking good on the surface or keeping people quiet enough, that criminals and those that pose security threats are our first cause of concern. But yet still, I just find it really ironic. You let them come up in here.
Sin pelea y con cuidado.
The majority of the 4 million deportations carried out by the Biden administration have occurred at the southern border, where an unprecedented influx of migrants created scenes of chaos, a humanitarian crisis, and one of Vice President Harris's biggest political vulnerabilities. Homan says mass deportation is the solution.
I want to show this real quick.
The majority of the 4 million deportations carried out by the Biden administration have occurred at the southern border, where an unprecedented influx of migrants created scenes of chaos, a humanitarian...
Look at them people. Whew. Okay.
crisis, and one of Vice President Harris's biggest political vulnerabilities. Homan says mass deportation is the solution. How many people would be deported?
You can't answer that question.
Why not?
How many officers do I have?
Is there a written plan on this?
Not that I know of.
If there's no memo, if there's no plan, is this fully baked?
We've done it before.
But not a deportation of this scale.
ICE is very good at these operations. This is what they do.
To see what they do, we went to Silver Spring, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C., where earlier this month, ICE agents gathered in a parking lot before dawn.
And ironically, Silver Spring, Maryland is probably a 10 or 15 minute commute to Andrews Air Force Base, right? So and then the base is only about another, 10 minutes, 15 minutes from the Capitol, from the White House, yada, yada, in DC. All of these are very, very close in circumference, which explains why ICE would have such a high presence, physical presence in a place like Silver Spring, Maryland. I just wanted to, add that caveat. Now, I'm not going to show the video. We're going to kind of slide past that, and then we'll move on. I'm not going to show the entire clip of the 60-minute interview because I'm already on borrowed time, trying to circumvent getting copyrighted and any. Thank you, Celia, for looking out. I appreciate you so much. Thanks and shout out to my mods and to my chat. I appreciate y'all. Love y'all to the moon. Let's go.
It's what ICE does every day and has been doing for many years.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Their task this morning, locate and arrest undocumented immigrants with criminal histories, including assault, robbery, drug and gun convictions.
This morning, our target is going to be
identified by ICE as a threat to public safety.
Okay, let's roll.
Matt Elliston, director of ICE's Baltimore field office, told us the goal was to catch the first target by surprise. You've been watching him.
Yeah.
You know his routine.
Yeah, we know his routine. We've been watching him for a couple days.
Wait till he gets about in front of my vehicle.
Sure enough, a white van soon appeared to pick him up, but they didn't get very far.
Hey, how you doing? What you got in your hand? What did you put down?
The man they arrested was a 24-year-old Guatemalan with an assault conviction who had been ordered deported by a judge 5 years ago.
So this was an illegal that had priors, right? They've been watching him for a few days. I assume and interpret that the interviewer is actually making this point in order to put some accent on the fact that this is not an easy process, that the deportation process is currently the one that's currently in place. When Tom Homan said that ICE is good at what they do, she is rebuttaling that by saying, okay, well, let's look at some real live experiences on the timing, the process, the manpower that's required, the monies that are needed in order to support this type of enforcement. And is it giving some assurance that this is going to work to its completed desired outcome and goal?
The ICE agents discovered that the driver of the van was also in the country illegally. They told us he'd been deported once before.
He has no criminal record. He was picking up his employee to go work. It doesn't make sense to waste a detention bed on someone like that when we have other felons to go out and get today.
A lot of folks might hear you and say, hold on, you've got an undocumented immigrant who comes face to face with ICE, who's responsible for deporting folks from this country, and you let him go.
We utilize immigration law to enhance public safety. It's not to just aimlessly arrest anyone we come across, right? We do targeted enforcement in ICE.
It took a team of more than a dozen officers 7 hours to arrest 6 people, and that doesn't include the many hours spent searching.
12 officers, 7 hours to make 6 arrests in Silver Spring, Maryland. as a tag along. The interviewer went on this particular day to follow and observe their entire operation and to report on it. Again, 12 officers, 7 people with 6 arrests. 7 hours with 6 arrests.
For them.
Oh my God.
So how would it even be possible then for ICE to arrest 1 million people in this country if that mass deportation plan were to take effect?
I could say here in Maryland, we would never be able to resource or find that amount of detention, which would be our biggest challenge, right? And just the amount of money that would cost in order to detain everybody, it would be, at the Department of Defense level of financing.
It's insane to think about it at this sort of scale.
Jason Hauser, ICE chief of staff during the first 2 years of the Biden administration,
Go and take it off for me.
says it costs $150 a night to detain people like those we saw arrested. The average stay as they await deportation is 46 days.
Yeah, but they're paying over $300 to hotel owners to house those same illegal immigrants and migrants that are in New York City. So I don't understand the relevance of what you're saying as to how this is 150. That's half. That's half of what it costs to just house them, not to feed them, not to give them any of the other perks that they were offering prior to election time in order to, hopefully gain confidence in them enough to vote for them, in my opinion. Right. So I don't know. It's definitely going to cost in order to get them out but it can't be the comparison as to what is in order to, once they get here, to keep them here. You got to take care of what you invite.
One deportation flight can cost $250,000, and that assumes the home country will accept them. Many, like Cuba and Venezuela, rarely do. ICE currently has some 6,000 law enforcement agents. How much manpower would it take to arrest and deport 1 million people?
You're talking 100,000 official officers, police officers, detention officers, support staff, management staff.
Trump advisor Stephen Miller has said staff could come from other government agencies like the DEA.
The idea that you're going to take the FBI or the Marshal Service or the Bureau of Prisons or the Secret Service or FEMA off of their mission sets that protect our communities will not make us safer.
No disrespect, but it didn't make us safer, and it definitely didn't help or assist the victims of Hurricane Helene with $750 loans to those that lost everything. Everything. Generational wealth. $750 loan for those that were approved. There were many denials. So I'm not really understanding how this is your argument, but let's proceed.
Immigration enforcement requires specialized training and language skills that most military and law enforcement officers don't have. There's this discussion out there that makes it sound like it's just an easy swap.
It is not an easy swap. So what I can tell you from the Immigration and Nationality Act, immigration law is second to the U.S. tax code in complexity.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is that worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there's. Families can be deported together.
Period, right? Maybe they can be deported together. That's we don't know how they got here. We really don't, but they're here. They knew the risk they were taking. A lot of them, I did on my last live stream, absolutely have gone through hell and high water to even get on this soil, becoming victims of cartels, being stamped on their arms so they don't get double dipped and get harassed the entire route because they have had to pull in and rein in all of their resources in order to pay these cartels off so they don't end up unalived, so they can continue their journey, so that their children are not violated, so that their wives are minimally to not being violated. There is an entire process and a risk way before you even get here, just to get here. I don't know what that means about where you came from, but what I do know is that it can't possibly, in the long term or the short term, in my opinion, cost more than it has already cost, and is still costing at the sound of my voice in this live stream. There are people pouring into this country as a last-ditch effort to not be deported or to be able to get in through the current administration and take their chances once they get here. Now, I'm going to show my last clip and then we're going to wrap this thing up, right? But I thought this was interesting and we'll discuss it after I show it. Hold on, did I put it even? Hold on, y'all. One second. Okay, here we go.
The biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. We will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking system. We will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. We will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking system.
So the plan is to implement and to implement an entire biometric tracking system, right? So it doesn't require all of the manpower and all of the scouting, all of the rounding up, and then going through another whole process in order to identify these people. Now, I don't know anything about that to the point where I can elaborate on it further, but just the term biometric tracking system in itself seems like once it is implemented, tested, and hopefully there is a success rate, that it will definitely alleviate a lot of the manpower and a lot of the time that is required currently in order to round up illegals during this plan of deporting people on a mass scale back to their countries. Now, my position on all of this is this. I believe, and I have always, to the point where a large part of my content has been focusing on this immigration issue because it just doesn't affect some of us. It touches every last one of us, even if we are unaware of it. The problems that we are feeling the effects of it currently, are we considering the long-term effects? So even if this all went away in the next year, you think there wouldn't be long-term effects economically? You don't think that there would be long-term effects as far as crime, the court system being super saturated, definitely exposing further flaws in our system, in our federal system, in our laws, that if people that are paying attention would be able to identify in actually attempting to circumvent, right? There is an issue with people coming over here from other countries and you having those countries saying, we appreciate you taking them basically, but they can't come back here. They're too problematic. They cost too much. They're taking up our resources in our prison systems. They're doing things over here that's costing this country the ability to be able to thrive and prosper. They're your problem now. And we have had an administration in place that has ignored to the public and the outcries of the public and popular opinion that this is not in our benefit as a country, as citizens. And what it's done is it has exposed fully, in my opinion, and for those that choose not to see it, I don't know what to tell you. But they have exposed themselves to the point where They don't have any concern for the citizens. They have outright disrespected the veterans as well as the taxpayers. Disrespected to the utmost, in my opinion. We already have a drug problem. We have a mental health issue in this country. And these people are bringing in drugs. They are exercising the biggest market that we are aware of at this point, and that is human trafficking, which is even more profitable than drugs, than the drug epidemic. Whatever they did in their native countries, they're bringing those systems, those behaviors, and those bad intentions to our soil, and you are paying them to do it. Personally, as I have stated, this election, I'm not real big on elections. I have my own personal beliefs on it. I try to just take care of me and mine, my household. That's what I got control over. However, the trajectory that this country has been going in just in a mere 4 years has been alarming. And the disingenuous actions that this administration it's been in our faces. We have had to do something. Do I feel that this will solve all of our problems? Absolutely not. But I do feel it will buy us some time in order for it not to be so super catastrophic on a paramount level. And any of us that have children, any of us that have nieces, nephews, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I feel and felt that it was our duty to do something. Because for this amount of time, we've been sitting back and we haven't been doing enough, right? And this perspective right here is how many people feel. I am paying and have been paying for my children's lives to be in danger. Again, we don't have a say-so. We find out after the fact where our money's going. I knew when they started sending all that money to Ukraine, we was in trouble. Now we sending money to Israel. The list just goes on and on. So with that being said, I just wanted to bring some more information, some updated information, some current information. You can draw your own conclusions, do your own ideologies mentally and psychologically, draw your own, conclusions, your outcomes, and have your own feelings, right? And I appreciate y'all. Listen, let me go through my chat because I didn't do so during the stream, but I appreciate all of y'all. We got Phoenix in the building, Phoenix Rising, beautiful. Miss Empress or EP13, salute to you. Greetings. We got Kevin Ellis in the house. We got Tajaga in the building. We got my friend Salia Binya in the house. Speaks has been in the building. I sure appreciate all of y'all. Samaya Namat is in the building. Beautiful, beautiful lady. Again, so I know it's a little late in the chat, but for any of those that are present, I love and I give all of my moms to drop links to channels to those that we support, right? And we got, yay, all right. Miss Yo is Sis Laverne is in the building. I appreciate you. Thank you for typing, sis. Thank you. And so, yeah, if for those that are just coming in on the replay, please feel free to go back and watch the beginning. I feel and I believe that I have dropped some valuable information and given my perspective and have, just given some food for thought on the direction that this country may be going in with the new administration coming into office. I'm praying and it looks more optimistic than it has in the past 3.5-4 years. And time will tell. None of it's perfect. None of it will be perfect. However, if we can just slow down the bleeding, cauterize the bleeding, then you can work on some healing, right? And those are my optimistic feelings and thoughts in this entire topic. And with that being said, I appreciate all of y'all. Thank you for being here. Much love. And I'll see y'all in the next chat. Peace.